So everything that drives us crazy as we get older, right? Our pain, our brain fog, our weight gains, our insulin resistance. LPS even drives adult onset of acne, right? Somewhere around 40% of adults start to experience adult onset of acne, right? And part of that drive is the presence of LPS in increasing inflammation in the sebaceous glands. And so it's just wreaking havoc in the body.
I remember multiple times watching you lecture at different events, and you're up there just slide after slide after slide, like LPS is doing this, LPS is doing that. And I'm sitting there in the audience like, oh, like, this is everything all at once. And oh my gosh, how horrifying, right? It's a lot. And so we're going to tie this into GLP-1s because this is the important part that I keep trying to get through to people. I am not a fan of high doses of GLP-1s for various reasons. And I understand that some people need to take higher doses to actually have an impact on their weight. My argument is if you're not doing all the things diligently, you shouldn't be bumping the dose up yet. There's a lot of work to be done before we start cranking the dose. And one of the reasons why is because there is a correlation to higher rates of SIBO, small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, when people are using GLP-1s. I suspect that people are going into the GLP-1 journey with SIBO in many cases, like I did. And even at a microdose, I have never taken even standard dosing. Even at a microdose, I am experiencing exacerbation of my SIBO because of that gastric stall. It slows the motility down. But SIBO upregulates LPS, and LPS drives the obesity and the diabetes that the GLP-1 is being used to treat. It is so ironic, and people need to understand this.
Yeah. Well, and I think the important point you bring up there is that, what's happening when you stall the bowels, right? So, and there's a number of things. So there's a number of documentations on the changes that occur to the microbiome when people are on GLP-1s. And people just have to be cognizant of this if they're going to go down that route. Some of the natural things that happen is they eat less, right? So the consumption of things like fiber goes way down. The consumption of polyphenols goes way down. The consumption of resistant starches goes way down, which means that they're not feeding the microbiome adequately, and they're driving further reduction in diversity within the microbiome. And if you're already in perimenopause at that stage and your microbiome diversity is already tanking because of lower estrogen, then you're actually exacerbating that situation. And then your butyrate production and short chain fatty acids go down. So that is an underlying disruption in your body's natural ability to regulate insulin levels. So now you're creating a foundational change in your metabolic system as a result of it. And the thing is, maybe when you're on the GLP-1, you're maintaining the proper insulin function and all that. But if you ever hope to come off of it, right, that's where you're going to see the effect of the problem that was created during the course of the GLP-1, right? The acceleration in diversity loss, the acceleration in insulin resistance and or dysregulation of insulin control and so on. So the effect that the GLP-1s have on the microbiome compound the negative effects that perimenopause already has on the microbiome. And putting those two things together can be a very profound change for people, if they're not really actively thinking about it and working against it.
This is why I'm not a fan of cranking the dose up high and fast when it just tanks out people's appetite. Obliterating someone's appetite is not the jam because of exactly what you just said. Beyond becoming malnourished, beyond wasting away too fast and losing potentially muscle mass and what else. This is why I say, and I've said it multiple times, and I've never really gotten to extrapolate on it, but this is one of the many reasons I say when people are doing high doses and they crank it up fast and they lose a ton of weight and they don't preserve their muscle mass and they don't take good care of what they're putting in their mouth, they are going to be more metabolically brittle on the other side. They're destroying, they're coming in metabolically compromised and they're leaving metabolically devastated. And this is one of the biggest reasons why.
Yeah, and that happens in people in their 20s and 30s, but it happens more profoundly if you're middle age. because of the other factors that are already dismantling your metabolic health and your microbiome, right? The hormone changes. So I think it's an area that people have to really pay attention to, because we may be creating, as a result, a population that starts coming off these GLP-1s that are way worse off than they were before. And as a result have much bigger problems that they now have fewer solutions for. Right. And so the consciousness around this has to improve. Now, and just to mention a couple other things that changes, we know that protein intake naturally decreases with GLP-1s as well, right? And as a result of that, your microbiome has fewer proteins. As a result of that, it actually compromises mucin production, which is that very important mucus layer that maintains the barrier integrity, which if you don't have adequate mucin production, not only is the barrier function of your gut compromised, which means your gut is more leaky and more LPS gets through, but you also then compromise your immune response, right? Because so much of your immune function exists in that mucin layer. And so you're compromising a physical component of where your immune system tends to function. The other thing of it is it changes your metabolic, your fermentation system. I mentioned this earlier, where it reduces saccharolytic fermentation, but it increases something called proteolytic fermentation. And that proteolytic fermentation, unfortunately, produces more ammonia, P-cresol, and these very inflammatory compounds. So it's shifting how your body even deals with food. That is coming in, even though it's limited amount of food that's coming in. So yeah, all of those things compound together and create kind of a perfect storm of metabolic disruption, gut-brain disruptions, gut-skin disruption, midsection metabolic disease that you see, that conventional bloating in the midsection and so on, and then down the line it upregulates immune dysregulation and so on.
What fires me up about this is that so many clinics and pharmacies and telemedicine companies are now erroneously deceiving people, selling them into microdosing GLP-1s for weight loss. There is no such thing, first of all. If you're truly on a microdose, it is not a weight loss strategy, because you acclimate to the GLP-1 so fast. There's no version where you're losing appreciable weight.